Y'all, we are back to talk Dune, season 1, episode 2, Two Wolves. And I definitely believe, after watching this in its entirety, that the two wolves are, of course, Valia and Desmond. Now, they are each true believers in whatever their cause is, but of course they're going to bump heads. I was here for all of the tension, all of the angst between these two, but let's dive into everything that happened on this episode. So as we open the episode up, we a new sister, right? But we don't really get to know her name, but we find out later that she is a medical professional who is going to be facilitating, along with Atula, the autopsy of Kasha, who we know was incinerated, right? Internal burning from her meridian network. It came from inside. This was an inside job, and baby Kasha looks so bad. And the place that we arrived to was called the Sook School, right? And Tula is thanking this person so much for taking your time because we really want to get to the bottom of what happened. So potentially we can prevent it from happening in the future. The sisters are chattering, honey, because they're like, this was an assassination. She was the truth sayer to the most powerful man in the Imperium, and this is how she ends up, which is, if you watched our live that we did on Saturday, you'll know my exact thoughts on that after season 1, that Desmond's prime strategy had to be to get rid of the truth sayer that was by Carino's side. That was the only way he was going to be able to have his ear unfettered, you know what I mean, with no interference. Because in my opinion, Carino is one of the most weak leaders that I've seen in a long time in any of these shows. You know what I'm saying? Just awful. Valia ends up having a talk with Tula and says, listen, I have to go to Seleucus Secundus because I need to get to the bottom of what happened, how Nezi is. I basically need to secure this situation and also find out and notify him of what happened to Kasha. But before she leaves, she talks to Tula and says, look, Tula, I know Lila's your favorite, but we know her bloodline. And they alluded to that in episode 1. And I was like, what's Lila's bloodline? We'll come to find out she is the granddaughter of Raquella, right? The mother superior who we found died in the very first episode many, many years ago. And so we start alluding to something that Lila is going to have to do and how dangerous it is. But in the moment, we really don't know. We find out that, again, she's the granddaughter of Raquella, but what she's going to have to undergo, why we need her, doesn't become super evident until later. Again, Valia has to go secure Nezi, and Tula is really against it because, again, she's basically raised Lila, and Valia is like, you have to put that to the side. This is about business. This is not about the good of one person. This is the good of everyone. Again, Valia don't give a damn. Valia wants to conclude her mission by any means necessary. Anybody can get it. Anybody can be a casualty of war. And again, I think that's going to either make you love or hate her character. We'd also find out in this conversation, Lila's going to need to connect with her ancestors because this is the only way to get an understanding of really what the reckoning is and how they're supposed to fight. Valia picks Theodosia to go to Seleucus Secundus with her. Now, Theodosia is one of the black alkalites that's there. We've met her briefly in episode 1, but they say that she's one of the most promising alkalites that they have. And so I'll be interested to see if we get to see her character develop. When she meets Nezi, she's like, oh, I can tell you everything about the school. Nezi's like, what happened to Kasha? Nezi is a miserable person. I don't like her. You know what I mean? Nezi is looking at her intended's body there, little Prui or whatever his name was. The emperor couldn't attend the services for the little boy, and Rickezi's like, oh, is that how we're doing it? And he is big mad. Again, this was the heir to his empire. The emperor is acting like he ain't want this. So Desmond gets arrested when we all know he sowed that seed. Desmond's basically, I knew what you wanted and I did it for you. I took it upon myself. And again, Carino and his fake outrage, because at the end of the day, this ties perfectly into what Carino ultimately wanted, which was to be out of this arranged marriage. He wanted no parts of it. Richese clearly is seeking to be a problem at this point, and for good reason at this point. Tula gets Lila on board. Tula loves her, right? We need you to talk to your grandmother, Raquella. And mind you, this entire time that Lila has been alive and raised in the sisterhood, they have never told her who her people were. She always just thought that she was an orphan. She didn't think she had anyone. And so now that she understands that Raquella is her great grandmother, whoever it was, what's next for her. The process is going to be called the agony. And basically, it's a time or place or process where she will go to the land beyond, all right, and talk to her ancestors and get the answers that she needs. However, this is extremely dangerous. She could be stuck there forever because if something happens to her in the agony, she stays in the agony. And so Tula makes it seem as if she's choosing for herself, but she really manipulates Lila because at the end of the day, there's almost a promise that she'll get to meet her mother. You know what I mean? Which is really, really sad. But again, at the end of the day, Tula, up to this point, is doing whatever her sister says. Apparently, Constantine likes coochie, honey. He ate the box up. The Rachese sister was spread eagle and he was going to work. And again, Constantine's character is so blah to me. Now I will say in this, he is trying to get information because apparently he is not his father's favorite. And so he is plotting, planning, scheming, I think, to be seen by his father. And we've seen this over and over and over again in a lot of stories. And so I'm not really compelled again by Constantine. But again, the Marchese daughter is saying as much as she knows, but she's like, you think my father talks to me? He doesn't, but I need you to take some of this spice and go back to work, sir. She gives a little insight that none of this is worth anything. The palace, the thing that matters is the person who owns or is in control of the spice of Arrakis, right? The desert planet. That's what matters at the end of the day. Any of this can come and go. And so again, he feels like he's the son that doesn't have the ear of his father. And maybe if he gets tea, I think from the Rachese daughter, he feels like he can take that back to his father. Carino is stressed out and we discover, or he talks about how this soldier was swallowed by the sandworm and the worm gave him powers. Of course, that's what Desmond has told him. Natalia, his wife, is telling him to relax. Let's use Desmond. Let's use him for our bidding and for our will. And again, I think Carino surrounds himself with strong women. He is just such a weak-willed leader. He is so subject to suggestion that he's the perfect figurehead, I guess, for anybody to really use him as a puppet, to be honest. So Natalia's use Desmond, and of course, he's immediately on board. Valia got spies everywhere. Do you hear me? Valia has spies everywhere. And honey, just know that as we continue to go through this episode, Valia arrives and Rachese wants justice, and she is going along with that because yes, let me meet this prisoner that you have. And Carino's like, I don't know what you're talking about because of course he's told Rachese that I have no clue who this man is. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have anyone in custody. We don't really have any suspects. And Rachese's like, you're lying. And Valia's like, doing her thug signs, her gang signs with the other sister there, and gets the truth sayer to bring Rachese down. She speaks with Carino, and Carino wants to deny it at first, but she's like, I know you're lying. You're not good at this, bro. And Natalia's like, we have the queen mother here, or the mother superior here. You need to acquiesce and take her to Desmond. Now, this was the interesting thing because Valia talks to Carino about Kasha, and he seems like he couldn't care less, honestly, because he was like, where is she at? I've been needing her and she's been absent. Well, she's dead. And he was like, oh. And so Valia finally gets to come face to face with Desmond. And baby is nothing of the sort. It's nothing that she thought. I don't think that Valia thought that Desmond was going to be as formidable as he was, right? Because he's not backing down. He's not scared of her. They're having a conversation and she's asking him all these questions and he's responding truthfully. And she says the same thing that Kasha said. Whatever he's saying, he believes to be true. His ultimate mission, of course, is to rid the world of the sisterhood. He says, yes, I killed Kasha because I saw her heart and I saw her motivations were impure and I took her out. And basically, I would do it again. I would do it again. Nezzy, of course, is crying. She's very torn up about Kasha. And like I said before, she wants Theodosia to tell her about how Kasha died. And she said it very aggressively, like, you owe me something. And again, Nezzy, you don't give that, sis. Again, I don't know if it's the actress herself or just this character, how she's written, but I don't see Nezzy as anybody special. And I wish I did. I could put her in the boat with Constantine. I really wish she had a stronger presence. But there's something that just doesn't connect for me with her in this character. But maybe that's the point, and we'll see by the end of these 6 episodes. Of course, the we're back to the interrogation, and he says that Faith brought him to the palace. He admits that he killed Pruitt. Again, he admits that he unalived Kasha. He saw her corruption and she wasn't worthy. Now, we find out that it was basically what I said. He was in the sand and he made a deal with the devil. Shai Hadud gave him the gift when he took his eye. And he serves the Imperium. So basically, he's not going to serve Carino. He ain't going to necessarily be faithful to him or anybody else. It's about what he believes through this Shai Hadud is for the good of the realm, right? The truth he believes. Valya's ego to me is a doozy because even after all that, even after meeting him, she still thinks she's big and bad. She still thinks she is big and bad. And so they get into a knockdown, drag out situation. And he's telling her the truth. And she's basically like, I'm going to unalive you how I did Dorothea. And baby, not so. She pull out your blade and we talk to the waters and all that. But it didn't deliver this time, Valia. I think you need to go back to the drawing board. I think you need to get a new talent, a new gift. As it were, because it didn't work on him. He took the blade out, put it up to his neck, but apparently he was playing with her the whole time because when she said, thrust the blade in your neck, baby, he looked at her and he said, oh, I know now what your worst fear is. I thought it was not being heard. But it wasn't that. It was, they'll hear you, but they won't care. So her greatest fear is that she would be heard and people wouldn't listen. And my question would be towards the end is why didn't he just unalive her in the moment? But he is going to be building for sure an entire strategic mission against her. Kieran Atreides, of course, we know is the sword master, and I guess he's the security now. But he's sneaky because we see him in the palace stealing secrets, is what I think. And so he eventually goes back to the bar club where we saw him and Nezzy initially go to the jungle, and we meet Michaela again, which I thought was his girlfriend, but apparently I was wrong. They are damn rebels. They are starting a revolution because he wants to bring justice to his family's name. Of course, he is a descendant of Vorian Atreides. And are they planning a coup, is my question. We also discover that Michaela is not who she says she is either. She's a sleeper cell, damn it. She's of the sisterhood. They have people everywhere. Like I said, Valia has people everywhere. And they plan a strike against Carino. Kieran said he's a ride or die. Michaela's don't play with him. And so, like I said, I guess they're not smashing. And I wanted to know before Lila, because she ultimately agrees to go through the agony. And I was like, is Dorothea her mama? She seems so pious that I couldn't see her really having a kid out of wedlock. But we know Dorothea was the granddaughter of Raquella. So I was like, what's going on? Ultimately, she decides to say yes and she goes through the agony, which is crazy as hell. If you watched Chaos, it reminds you of damn Tartarus. That's what it reminds you of when they went there, completely in black and white. She talks briefly to Raquella, who is basically like, this is the reckoning. We know that's the burning truth. We didn't get any information that I feel like was I don't know, that I feel like was so deep. But she says, born twice, one blood, born, this person, the reckoning, was born twice, one in blood and one in spice, a revenant full of scars, born of war, path too short. Whatever that means, y'all. It's going to make sense in the end because we know this is all prophecy. Next thing we know, Raquella leaves and it's Dorothea behind her and she got her hemmed up. And she like, all right, I see what y'all did to me. You took me too soon. You took my hope. And so I'm taking your hope. You stole my future, so I'm taking your hope, basically keeping Lila there. And from what it looks like, by the time we get to the end of this episode, Lila dead. Dead as a doornail. Dead as a doornail. Carino has decided to use Natalia's advice and to use Desmond. So he gets the Duke Richese, honey, and starts burning him from the inside out, but stops himself at the orders of Carino and tells him, don't tell nobody what happened here today. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. Valia has had her privileges revoked now at the Imperium. She's going to have to start over from the drawing board. She's going to have to start out from the drawing board because, again, Desmond is a formidable foe and he wants to erase the sisterhood. And her little gimmicks aren't going to work, you guys. They are not going to work. But drop it in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of episode 2. I was here for it. Was it as good as episode 1 for me? No, but I think we're actually getting closer. And I'm really excited to see what the rest entails. But you guys let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all of the things. And I will see y'all in the next video.